I'll rise up and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us for another edition, the March edition of Impactful Conversations with Gayle Brown. We have a great guest for you today. For those of you who don't really know me, I'm Gayle Brown, Equity Leadership Strategist, Executive Leadership Coach. I'm an author, speaker, and CEO of Guest Brown Impact, an award-winning leadership development firm here where we work with women of color to overcome the challenges of equity in the workplace, so that they can put their families on firmer financial footing. I also work with businesses that need to overcome their challenges to equity. So I do offer diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Short for that is DEI services as well. So today we have a special day. Our theme today is DEI in the DV field, the challenges and the promise. DV, for those of you who don't know it, is short for domestic violence. And so we'll be talking to our amazing guest today, Timiza Wash, who will be with us in just a minute. But I want to tell you a little bit about why we started Guest Brown Impact, not that story, but why we started having impactful conversations. We wanted to celebrate and do something different as we launched our website. And there was so much adversity going on in the world. And we wanted to have a show where we could celebrate and lift up and elevate Black women's voices and celebrate our excellence. And so I've had some amazing guests on this show over the course of the last 2 years. And so today is no different. I've got another amazing guest. At Guest Brown Impact, our vision is women standing in their power, speaking their truths, and commanding their worlds. And all of our guests do that. But I coach women who are having trouble doing that. That's the reason why I do what I do. At Guest Brown Impact, we truly believe that these inequities, and I have a quote for that these inequities, the gender and racial inequities in our workplace, are only leadership challenges. And they are the leadership challenge of our generation. Guest Brown Impact is about all things leadership and all things equity, because we have strong values for integrity and also for justice. And so those have guided me my whole life. March is many things. So, March came in like a lion over here with all the storms in California, but it is a brisk, beautiful, sunny day. Finally, a dry day in California. But it's many things. So March is Women's History Month. And this is the month where we kind of bring our women back into it's called Her Story, because we found that women were being written out of the history books. So it's our month where we talk about women's contributions to the history, or her story, in the context of this country of ours. It's also Equal Pay Day. And this year, this is a date, it's a symbolized date that represents, it's a symbolic date that represents the day until which women have to work to make what their white male colleagues are making as of December of the prior year. And so that date this year is March 14th. And this is the collective of all women. If we take an intersectional look at that, if we disaggregate that data, it's different across all the different cultures and ethnicities. So for Black women, Equal Pay Day is way back in March, and Latina women is November. But we'll go ahead and talk about but we celebrate this day just to bring awareness of all the inequities. March is also Gender Equality Month, and this represents uh, the state of having equal rights and opportunities regardless of gender. When I did a little bit of research before we got on board here, and I found that the Biden Harris Association has issued its first ever national gender strategy. I didn't even know this, and I do a lot of work here. Um, and so I was so pleased to see that they have created a national strategy on gender equity and equality. And the strategy identifies 10 interconnected priorities: economic security, gender based violence. So it's so appropriate that we're talking to Timiza Wash today from Weave, right? Uh, the third priority is health. Education is 4. Fifth is justice and immigration. 6, human rights and equality under the law. 7 is security and humanitarian relief. And 8 is climate change. And 9, science and technology. 10, democracy, participation, and leadership. So our country has strategies with regard to tackling this issue. No country in the world has achieved gender equality. And I think we're at that inflection point with COVID-19 fueling so much awareness of the inequities. So this is awesome to find that our administration has identified 10 strategies to go after. So we won't stop there. We do need to move on. So our next slide talks about the fact that at Gets Brown Impact, we have a solution, right? And so our solution, which starts April 3rd, is called Command Your Worth Blueprint. We've identified we've defined a mentorship coaching cohort experience to help our sisters overcome these inequities in the workplace and to command their worth at work so that their families may be put on firmer financial footing. So more on that at the end, but you can save your seat if you want to be a part of that at commandyourworth.info. So that they'll put that in the chat for you. Also, in the course of our conversation today, we talk, and you want to join in and ask a question, please feel free to do that. And they will answer your questions in the chat. We'll sometimes answer them right here live. So go ahead and do that. You know, when I began to think about having Timiza on the show, I thought about my own story and what brought me to the work around domestic violence, and all the ways that we've intersected there as well. But a little bit of my story can be found in my book, Girl, Get It Right. But there was so much that happened before I wrote that book. I had done my own work with helping my church to architect their remedy to congregants who were dealing with domestic violence. Back then, this was 20 years ago. I did this ministry work for 12 years, but back then it wasn't talked about as much. Churches didn't even mention it in church, right? There was no acknowledgement that this was going on in the homes of America. And yet 1 in 4 women were dealing with domestic violence on a daily basis. I knew friends personally who were dealing with it. I had just come through it myself. I am a survivor. And, it just reminded me, all these memories came flooding back. I remembered the story. I'm wearing Doris's story. I'm wearing Doris's t-shirt today. But while I was going through it, when I was getting free of my own domestic violence, I had separated from my ex-husband and moved into a small apartment, a 1.5 bedroom apartment where I would begin to heal. But while I was there, I was working at USAA, and one of our colleagues, her name was Doris Nsunza, had disappeared. This was back in August 26 in 1997. Doris Nsunza disappeared off of the face of this earth 26 years ago, and her body has never been found to this day. But she was a strong, inspirational woman. And we wore these t-shirts as we searched for her in Sacramento. Doris worked in my unit, And she was aware of what I was going through. She had started her own group. She had gone through episodes of domestic violence, but she had also gone through stalking. And my perpetrator had begun to stalk me. So she gave me she had started this group called Sacramento Survivors of Stalking. And I used this booklet that helped me to document what was going on in my own case should I go missing. It identifies the victims, a photo. Look at my little young picture back in those days. My information, the family's information, my auto, my travel routes, the offender's picture, the offender's family information, my victim impact report. All of this happened as a result of Doris. And then Doris herself disappeared. So, this really took me back as I began to look at this. And I wanted to raise that visibility again because her body has never been found. Her story was captured on a YouTube video very, very accurately about 3 years ago by Caitlin Rose, and we'll drop that link in the chat. But she's on the missing persons list, and there's still an active missing persons list on that. The detective is Nikki Lines from the Sacramento Sheriff's Office, and there's even a hotline, a missing persons hotline that you can call into. So if you have any information about Doris and her whereabouts or what happened with her, we would love to see closure in that story, right? But my own roots go back so far when I thought about bringing Timiza on. At the time, Weave was the largest DV agency, it still is, in Sacramento. And there was a sister there, Michelle Coleman, who would help me as I started my ministry and give me information. And all the booklets and pamphlets came from Weave. When I look back at this quilt, this was something that someone quilted for me at work. When I was going through it, I had to one Thanksgiving I couldn't go home for Thanksgiving because my abuser had threatened to kill me, and I had to stay at her house. And she quilted this quilt for me, and no one had ever done anything that's so sweet for me. And I've always had that quilt. It represents a very tender time in my life. But also I hung this up because Hell No was the song in The Color Purple. And so I had to have that shirt because a lot of women that are going through it just have to put their foot down and say, no, no more. And there are so many resources available to you. Weave is just one of them. And we have someone here to represent Weave here today. So I'm going to transition now to Timiza and bring her voice into this room. And we'll drop those links in the chat. But I want to tell you a little bit about our special guest today, Timiza Wash. Timiza Wash has been providing direct services in various capacities for more than 20 years, with a passion for equity, education, and community, and building systems change. She holds a master's in higher education with emphasis on leadership from Sac State. And she is the current director of equity and transformational change. And she's been a leader in Weave's DEI efforts and reimagining the outcomes for disenfranchised communities. She supervises Weave's inclusion, diversity, equity, and access program department. There's a whole department which oversees the agency's training to ensure culturally responsive services for people of color and manages projects supporting underserved communities. She also serves on two boards, the Sacramento Black Chamber of Commerce and the nonprofit Born to Create, where she serves as secretary. She is also on the Sacramento County Commission for the Status of Women and Girls, where she serves as vice chair. So I bring into the room, let's bring Timiza, this warrior for change and for women of domestic violence and their solutions and creating new ways and paths for them. So listen, welcome to Misa. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's just a pleasure to be on this platform with another warrior, and just you've brought so much to the community, brought so much personally to me, and I just thank you for just honoring me and honoring the work that I do, because it is important for the survivors and the communities in which we serve. And domestic violence, as you said, is something that is still happening.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your transparency and your story. I know it is not an easy time to recollect all of the things, but I know through your stories, I always see and hear the transformation and the healing as a result of you even seeing the quilt and even seeing the shirt as a representation of your journey. And we have so many of those testimonials and those empowering stories of our survivors that really keep us going and
Mm-hmm.
really keep me in this work, because it is a blessing and empowering to be a part of such amazement and being a part of a culture that really sees the people.
Awesome. That's so nice to hear that. And to me, so, as I thought about my own journey and what brought me to this work, my own story, but also Doris's story, I wondered about your story. What brought you to this work?
A few things. You are always lifting up Black women, and of course, I am a Black woman, and it is Black women who actually introduced me to weave. The Sacramento Sister Circle on
Okay.
a Sunday afternoon. A few of us members and our the creator of Sister Circle, Christy Ketchum, we formed a group of us came on a Sunday. Our CEO Beth and Julie, our strategist officer, joined us on a Sunday. We
Wow.
wanted to have conversation about how is Weave supporting and outreaching to Black women needing services for domestic violence, sexual assault. And we really wanted to have that conversation, and they joined us to have it. And so that was 7 years ago. I've always been a champion for survivors. Always worked in marginalized communities. I'm born and raised in Oakland, and I've seen folks and around me who had experienced this, but never had I done the work or been a part of an organization who did this. And I really owe just the introduction to Sister Circle from I didn't know who Weave was.
Okay. All right.
And then at that moment, after we had that conversation, I went up to the CEO and I said, "Are you all? Do you all have any opportunities, job opportunities at this time?" And so happened the anti-trafficking program had just began. Grant funding had just started, and a month later, I started off as the anti-trafficking case manager, and
Oh my goodness.
7 years. I made 7 years as of February. So you just never know what one conversation will lead to. But that wasn't initially my intent. I just came as part of a collective, knowing that I have passion for Black women and wanted to know how do we support Black women, especially when ensuring that they know the resources. How are we ensuring that we're supporting them? Because talking about domestic violence and anything that is not a favor is something we're not rushing to go share with anyone. And so, how
Right.
do we do that in an environment that really will cultivate a person's healing and connection? So, we wanted to learn more about that. So, I'm thankful for that conversation on a Sunday.
Well, you know what? Just the fact that they came in on a Sunday shows their commitment to the community, right? I know Beth and Julie, and they are amazing women, right? They are just amazing. And it reminds me of when they worked with Ernest and I. Ernest was on the team. What my ministry through my church was called From Bruised and Battered to Blessed. And Beth and Julie allowed us to use their just to be a gathering point. So we would meet at the Weave offices downtown on our efforts to have the first um, men male black men conference on domestic violence called a call to men, and we brought in this guest speaker Tony Porter, and we organized 10 other organizations in the community, and we were Weed was front and center of that effort, right? I think they held that we got a small grant, and we worked with Weed, and that's how we paid for Tony through that small grant through the California Department of Public Health. And so Weave has just been a part of my journey in so many ways, provided all of my materials when I would have things going on. But also, even even my husband has worked for Weave for a short time. So, right? And so when that program was called, what was it? Coaching Boys to Men. Ernest
Okay.
worked on Coaching Boys to Men with Weave. Just happened to be sitting down. Beth is so open. Just happened to be having a drink with Beth, as we would sometimes do. And she described this job. I said, "Oh my God, that sounds like Ernest." She said, "Oh, that does sound like Ernest. He should come in and interview." And at that time, it was perfect because we had another business, and that was just a little part-time gig for him to just make enough money to cover, expenses. So it was perfect, and it was a great partnership with Weave. So Weave does a lot in the community around for people of color, but all kinds of innovative and forward-thinking programs. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let you talk a little bit. I want to hear a little bit about you said you were born in Oakland. That was news to me. Tell us a little bit about your family origin. A little bit about where your people are from.
Yeah, without family, there would be no me. I've been truly blessed to have met all of my great grandparents,
Wow.
um, my grandparents, and really have really been a true foundation of wisdom, of me feeling seen when there was no tables maybe for me to sit at to feel validated. I knew I had my kitchen table, which was always a place of more than just food, but it was always being poured into. And so externally, if I didn't feel the connection and the love, I knew I was going to get that from my family, because that's all on both sides too. It was never a gap. And family is resonates, born from Texas and Arkansas, and a lot of the family are in the Bay Area, and truly just blessed to have aunts, uncles, and I can look around and get answers because of all of the fruits of all that has been poured into all of us. And so family is essential to the ingredients that I need to survive and to thrive.
Awesome. Tamiza, that makes sense to me because I've known you now for about 15 years, and you've always had that calm center, that just stability, and that can happen as a result of having all that support in your youth. So thank you. I appreciate your family for providing that for you, as we don't
I
all get that. So I'm glad that you got that in your youth. There was a question though in the chat, and I want to see if you want to answer this now. But the question is, how is emotional abuse identified in domestic violence?
it's definitely harder to detect. I think culturally we've even heard, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Hmm.
Um, you hear, it might be now gaslighting. It may even resemble being talked down to.
Right.
And that could be even culturally like, oh, he said this is no big deal, or she said this. And but it affects you, right? It affects your demeanor, it affects how you feel, and you just continue to get those remarks. And so those comments that really belittle you of some sort. And so that is one of some of the things that are considered as emotional abuse, the insults, the gaslighting. And so um when when folks have felt that way, I always encourage them to call our support information line to seek that support, even when you don't know if it's identified as domestic violence.
Yeah.
I know oftentimes, you may not even be able to categorize, is this domestic violence? If you don't know, but you're feeling a certain way, and it doesn't bring you joy, and it makes you feel belittled of any sort, reach out for support, because it could be something that's happening and keeps happening in other relationships, but it may not be identified.
Yeah. Way back when I used to talk about domestic violence, I used to say there were four types. There's financial abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse,
Spiritual abuse we have,
spiritual abuse, right?
and technological abuse is one as well.
Talk about that one.
Yeah, this one is, and I would say, I've seen a lot of this with the youth, but it's amongst anyone. And this can be someone asking you for your secret passwords. If
Mhm,
you love me, you'll make sure I have all your passwords.
mhm,
Um, Maybe they're trying to exploit you with nude pictures or something.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
Anything technological. Maybe they're even trying to put a tracker underneath your car.
right.
Um, and really, anything that they can use, as a form of control, right? Power and control. If you give me your passwords, if I'm able to get to your any of your social media contacts, then that shows that you care for me and you love me. But if you care and love someone, you don't have to relinquish your passwords. And so that's another form of technological abuse. That's a form of the power and control someone can try and take over you because they
Power
know.
and control are just the cornerstones of this abuse. If there's
Correct.
power and control in your relationships, then you are more than likely in an abusive relationship. Uh, I remember seeing an Oprah series a long time ago, and this emotional abuse question is tricky because a lot of women stay way too long because he's not hitting me. He's not hitting me, therefore it's not domestic violence. So they stay in there. And when you hear belittling and nasty comments from someone who reportedly loves you and you love them, this can do the most damage because, you know, the scars I had from the run-in with my ex-husband, I can't even see them on my hands anymore. But those emotional scars, they go deep and they can take years of therapy to undo. So emotional abuse is abuse, and it is enough reason to leave. A lot of women stay in it because he's not hitting me, and therefore I can endure it. But that is a form of abuse, and it is hard to repair. So we have to take care of our spirit. That's how I knew when I had to leave because my spirit was damaged. It was Mother's Day, and I'm a person who cares about holidays. Back then I used to wear holiday sweaters. I'm all about it. I'm doing
Yeah.
the house. I'm doing all the things. And it was Mother's Day, and I don't want to talk to anybody. I want to talk to anybody's mother. I want to talk to. I'm like, ooh, this is affecting my spirit, right? I
Right,
mean,
because you just as you said, the physical scar, you could see it,
yeah,
and the next thing you know, that could be healed, but
right.
internally you can't see that, and
Yeah,
for years you may still not feel that healing. So the
yeah,
scar can go away in about 6 weeks to a month or whatever, but
yeah.
that internal healing can take months, years, and even
Years, years
indefinite.
of therapy, right?
Yeah.
So it's a real deal. If you're dealing with emotional abuse, it's still a big deal, even though he's not hitting you.
And just to add to that, the triggers, right, that are
Yeah,
associated, that scar that you don't see anymore, that could be a trigger if you kept seeing it, but
right.
internally
You
you
can't
don't
see.
see it, but it
Mhm.
could be some instances that you are triggered. So it's important to identify what are those things that are triggers and what are the things that really shakes up your spirit, and seek the support. And weave services are completely free. Our counseling sessions are free, and then it's on a sliding scale after a certain amount of sessions. But counseling, we understand, may not be for everyone, but we do have peer support, we have advocates. And so and our 24/7 support and information line, which folks can talk to someone who's confidential and your things are not shared. So sometimes it's about not talking to someone you know. It's about talking to someone you don't know,
Thank you.
just to feel that connection and that safety.
And sometimes that's even better there because they don't know your business. They're going to tell your business. It's even better to talk to somebody you don't know, right? And somebody
Right.
going to keep your anonymous stuff. I know I was very private. I didn't want anybody to know. I was embarrassed. I was shamed. I didn't want anybody to know what I was putting up with at home, right? That was just embarrassing to me. But it's not your fault. And you do need help to overcome this. It was in a Weave peer support group that I began to realize that this wasn't a situation that was going to go away. This wasn't situational. I had always attributed his outburst to, oh, just pressure on the job. It's going to get better. It's going to return back to what it was. But it was in that peer support group when they described the cycle of abuse. And they went around the room and all these women shared stories and they were all similar. They were all a pattern. I'm like, that's what's going on at my house, right? I could see that cycle of abuse happening. It wasn't like in 1 year, it was over a course of 2 years, but it was still a cycle, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So those peer support groups, they're free. They're still run. What days do you run your peer support groups?
I'm not certain of the exact time, but our supporting information line can definitely provide you with with that provide everyone with that information because there is a scheduling and for individual counseling, for group counseling, and it depends on evening or day. So they have a variety of different of offerings. However, I know just with a lot of organizations, it is impacted. Our counseling services have been impacted, and so I would definitely have folks reach out, and there is a system to ensure folks get supported.
Awesome. Thank you. Now, Tamisa, tell me a little bit about you. Do you have a slogan or a quote or a motto that you live by?
It's always something. I love Maya Angelou, so all the things that she has said. I mean, her being a survivor
Mm-hmm.
and the ways in which she has survived and been surviving through all the different adversities. But I think thinking of things my grandmother has told me, I'm not perfect, but I'm worth being poured into. She would always say, and everyone is worth being poured into. I'm not perfect, but I'm worth it, and everyone is worth being poured into. And so that is something she always said, and that's something I always believe in. And in supporting survivors, that is something I always let them know. We don't have to be perfect. We don't have we don't feel that you're being judged by walking into these doors. You're worth it, and we're here to support you, and we want to pour into you.
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe that.
That's awesome. Thank you. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your role and your new role and the field and the DEI efforts that are going on there.
Certainly. Just as an overview, we have been doing this work for years, and it has continued to evolve.
Right.
And to where we are today with a new department called IDEA that I oversee, inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. This was something I say is not a side dish, but a main dish. This is something that we want to have as the main dish of supporting and serving the community. It's not an afterthought. It is the main dish of how
Now.
all of our services should be included in the way we support and serve clients in ensuring that we are being culturally responsive. And what I do is helping to build staff capacity around social justice issues. Um, and for not just staff capacity, but for the community capacity, we realize the staff we support and serve, they too experience community trauma, and they support our clients. What are ways in and how we're supporting the staff
Mhm.
in doing this work? And so that is one of the pieces of what I do, encouraging recruitment and retention of diverse communities within connecting our supports to Weave. Um, Creating opportunities for staff, clients, and community connection, and really, really helping to build collaborative relationships and partnerships in the community. And we have our iWeave initiatives that really leverage our learnings and our trainings, and really supporting in ensuring we have a robust onboarding path
Mhm.
for new staff and ensuring that your voices are heard and that you're seen.
Mhm.
It's important in our work that we continue to establish and continue our strategic priorities and our mission and our vision, and that our services are not cookie cutter, that we are being culturally responsive, offering wraparound services for survivors that are experiencing domestic violence, sexual assault, and sex trafficking for all genders,
Mm,
and that and all genders and all ages too. I
mm,
want folks to know that um, our tagline, when everyone acts, violence ends. And
mm,
so I hope that opens the door for men, for children, for women, and non-binary, all the people in the community to know that services are for them. It's not just for one particular population, not one particular gender, but it's for everyone.
awesome. I guess that's something that is evolving as we go as well. The inclusion of men in this movement, right?
Yes.
Providing service for men as well. So that's we've I think you back a few years ago you changed the acronym WEAVE, which used to be Women Escaping a Violent Environment. Now it's just WEAVE, like a basket weave. We don't use the acronym anymore. It's just for all who are escaping a violent
And
environment.
understanding that everyone's not escaping everything, and so when everyone acts, like we realize we can't do this work alone, and so when everyone acts, any gender acts, violence can end, and that's our ultimate vision. We want domestic violence to end. We want folks to not have to be harmed as a result of domestic violence and sexual assault.
Right, right. You also mentioned iWeave. Uh, is that did I hear that right? Is that like an online something or another?
So yeah, this is we have iWeave initiatives where we have a platform for learnings and trainings, and um a lot of our social justice, we have a social justice SharePoint, but also under iWeave will be our initiatives, our trainings and ways for community learnings and for staff learnings.
Oh, so is iWeave open to the community or is it an internal internal drive?
It is an open for the community, the trainings that we have. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And I heard a little bit about your focus is not just the community, but also internally looking at making sure that your practices are inclusive and also all of the ways that you onboard and deal with your not just the survivors, but the people who serve the survivors. Is that right?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
So you mentioned that, of course, Weave has services for the community, but the focus of your department is also internally, right?
Yes, yes.
It's not just external, but internal as well.
Yes, we have to be reflective of both. Like if we are truly wanting to connect and build, it has to be for both. And so, and in the role that I have as a director will be to support staff in building those relationships and building that connection amongst each other, but also building our social justice. We have a social justice hour once a month. We have our social justice offerings within our all staff, and then the trainings through our iWeave. And what I want to correct is our Weave Learn is for the community. Our iWeave strategies are for the internal learnings.
Okay,
So I
so
wanted to be
Weave
clear. So
learns.
we have that Weave Learn that is platforms for the community to log on and to access trainings.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so how did COVID impact how you delivered services?
It really ignited us even more to be innovative, right? And really, for me personally, COVID was helpful, I would say, and I say that to say, um, as a Black woman, I feel like COVID it was a term, but it allowed me. I've been navigating in a COVID way, right? I think when you always have a plan B, C, and D, always in how I live, and I loved that our CEO and our teams were able to quickly navigate to a platform that supported survivors and met them where they were at. We never closed, but
Wow.
we never stopped services, but we closed the building, but we never stopped services. So in doing so, we have secure platforms that were geared for counseling. So
Okay.
folks did not have to miss counseling. It was just offered differently. We
Yes.
were able to, what was a challenge was supporting survivors that you had never met before.
Yeah.
Um,
True.
because and hearing from advocates, them being creative, right? To say, I needed to create passwords with them. If you say, if for example, if a client was saying, "Hey, I'm cooking tacos," that meant it was a good time to
Right.
talk.
Ah.
You
Okay.
know, so the advocates were really creative, and I'm speaking to, the advocates I closely worked with,
Mhm.
and just really sharing a to me. So like, I've never met them, but yet they trust me. Thankfully, we've
Mm,
been able to build
right.
rapport.
That's
So with that, I wanted, when her mate, her partner was not in the room or not in the house, I wanted to establish what was, let's talk about safety each and every time, because
right.
unfortunately during COVID, folks were sheltered in place with their abusers.
Right.
And so we wanted to provide some innovative strategies and ways to support them, um, understand what they were going through, as we knew everyone wasn't going through the same things,
Right.
and
Right.
what supports did they need, how what could we do. It was about thinking about what we could do versus what we couldn't do.
Right.
um during COVID, we also expanded to an iChat feature on
Mm,
our website. So we
mhm.
had our support and information line, which is 916-920-2952, 24/7 operations. But then we realized
Can you
access to
say
a
that
phone.
again? Just let's
Oh,
get in the chat. Their support line is.
916
Hmm.
920 2952.
Thank you.
And as a result of that, we realized um, everyone didn't have, may or may not have access to a phone. We knew about economic insecurities, food insecurities, right? And so um, we also extended services and support to an iChat feature where folks could chat with a live agent about what was going on. So it
Right.
wasn't just talking to someone on a phone; it was also utilizing the computer to chat with someone about their safety and what is happening there. So um, now we are back in full swing, but COVID, we never stopped. I feel like if anything, we were busier than ever.
Yeah.
Um, and we just changed internally, like some of our rooms, some of our settings to ensure more of a COVID safe environment.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
ways internally to ensure safety.
Hmm.
So I think it really was allowing us to reimagine how we supported survivors, what they needed, hearing from them, and really putting that to action.
Hmm. You're really quite innovative as an agency. Timiza, I don't know. I know you remember, but we, I'm associated with Safe Black Space.
Yes.
Safe Black Space has an arm called emotional emancipation circles, and I was trained in that, and I
I
went
know
to.
I got to work alongside you. I was so thankful
I
that I
know,
got to do that.
I know, but I didn't know if they would do it right, so I went to Beth, and she said, of course. And Tamiza was the coordinator with that. And we did 8 weeks of emotional emancipation circles, a program designed to heal Black women, right? And so it was specifically because we weren't serving their whole population. I was unsure whether they would do it, but they were open to it. And Tamiza was the coordinator, and I got to see Tamiza for 8 consecutive, I don't know, Tuesdays or Wednesdays. So awesome. I just applaud we for all that they do in the community and how open they are and to innovating and
And
to
if I
trying
can
new
add, if I can add to that, Gail, when we got to experience that 8 weeks together, what I learned or what I saw from you in curating a welcoming space. So you had the weave space,
yeah,
but every session you brought in art, you brought in cultural food, you
yeah,
set the tone, and every week more participation, the participation increased
Mhm.
based on what happened from the last one that they had to share with other clients. No,
Yeah,
you got to make it out to this. The way the red beans were last week, the way the vegetarian beans were, or
yeah,
the
yeah,
artwork that was there, or the journey of different art that we were able to narrate in the hallways. So I just want to applaud you for um bringing this to Weave and knowing that it would be a benefit to Weave
yeah,
and allowing us to be a part of it. For me, it was a no brainer that how I would really enjoy this. And I knew working with you was going to be just a joy as always. But I just saw how much you put into it, though. Like you had the space, but no, you're like, no, I got to curate this space.
yeah.
Um,
We have to bring in our Afro. We wanted to make it Afrocentric, so we brought in blankets and statues and African art and African quotes, and it was fun. We had to transform the room to make it our space.
and as you transform the room, you transform hearts, you transform minds. And so that really definitely still sticks in my mind. And I know it did for a number of the clients. But
Um,
then even during those times, we saw the barriers maybe of transportation that
yeah,
occurred, right? So
yeah,
just even of something that was a good offering, we still see the challenges that face people still wanting to win.
yeah.
And we still have these
Number
spaces.
of barriers just to get where they want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why we need culturally responsive components of our learnings and of
Mhm.
our leadership um, of our training, so that folks feel seen, they feel connected, but they know that there's a space. Like I might not be able to show up because I'm having these challenges, but I know it's still there. And
Right.
that's what I my success in having idea. That's what I want to see, that folks know that we're here, that we're evolving, that we're growing, and we're not perfect, and that we want to lend our ears to hearing from the community and the voices, because that will only strengthen our walk and what we're doing.
Awesome. I'm so glad you're there, Tamiza, and that you have a heart for all of this, right? And that you have a passion for it. You're just going to help our community. You're going to help Weave. You're going to help the victims that come through your doors and the survivors. So I just appreciate your being in that space and holding it down. This is not an easy space to be in. So I appreciate the hard work.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Appreciate you. All right. So I wanted to see if you wanted to share anything else before we go to prizes, because we do want to give away some prizes. But is there any new initiatives that you think we should know about or you want to highlight?
Just um within our grants and things, like the things that are highlighted to ensure organizations are doing, and we actually are aligned with that well.
Yeah.
um, Ensuring the strategies for addressing the gaps in recruitment, onboarding, we've already tackled those things. What is your DEI plan? We've been working on a DEI plan prior to any address from any grants or things. We've been doing this for
So
over
the
over,
funders are
over
beginning to require DEI, is what I'm hearing.
yeah, the
But
required
you are ahead
DEI.
of it already.
And we've already started our plan, and had already started that quite before the requirements,
Nice.
and just continuing to build on those things, and looking at our board demographics, and how diverse that is, and how it's continuing to be more and more diverse,
Hmm.
and just wanting, and looking at our staff makeup as well. Are the staff to client ratios, are those aligned with the clients that we serve, as we look at our demographics? And so
Hmm.
those we've met those, and continuing to do so through our recruitment and our outreach.
It's nice that you're being intentional about it. When I was working with the DV field before, it was really out of balance. The communities had a large number of women of color, but the staff was primarily white dominant. But it's nice that you're being intentional about making sure that it's reflective of the community, and that you have some diversity so people can see themselves when they come in that door, that the space is somewhere where they feel comfortable. I know that we went so far as to open up a center in South Sacramento. Is that right? Is that still the case?
Well, we have a collaborative, the Healthy Black Families Collaborative in South Sacramento.
Mm,
Um, we applied for a grant to better support the African American Black residents in South Sacramento to reduce domestic violence and sexual assault.
wow.
And we knew we needed to connect with the Black community better and
Mm,
more intentionally.
right.
And how to do so even better than to listen to the community, right?
Yeah.
It's not about reading about what we think. It's not about hearing about just because I'm a Black woman, I know all the things. We need to reach out to the community so we know all the things in variety of ways. It's not one voice. It's going to be all the voices in all the levels from men, women, and children. And again, even when those families come, we have to ensure that we are supporting them individually. And so having that collaboration, um, we were able to build partnerships. But in building partnerships, we had to build rapport. They had to know who we was. We had to know who they were, but we had to feel trusted. We
Mhm.
started out with questions: what partnerships have hurt or harmed you, and what does that look and feel like?
Wow.
We wanted to be bold. We wanted to be innovative,
Yeah.
and we wanted to be a good representation of how we would move together in unison to speak to the community. The community already had a buy-in with the partners that we had selected and chosen and worked with because they had already been working with them. But
Right.
many of them had not even known or worked with Weave or had worked with Weave, and wanted to figure out how to build our relationships. And with that, we knew we couldn't do it in silos.
Right.
So that those partnerships have truly been reflective
Mm,
of the journey we have now. Some of our partners include Southside Christian Center, understanding and supporting the faith-based community,
mm,
and hearing from them in their congregation. Rose Family Empowerment Creative, Rose Family Creative Empowerment Center
oh,
is our other partner. Escape Velocity,
mm,
Voices of the Youth, She Could Be My Daughter, our Kaiser Trauma Division, and Sacramento Children's Home. So
mm,
those are our South Sacramento partners.
mm.
Without them, this collaboration would not be as expansive as it has. In working in this partnership, we realized having an advocate embedded in these partnerships would also help bridge the gap of resources and information that the community knew,
Yeah.
and how would they connect to Weave. And so that advocate is there to learn and support the community, but also work more closely with our partners. And so those have been some sure wins. And as a result of that, we have ambassadors,
Mm,
community ambassadors who have had lived experience, but we have supported what we're doing because they talk to the community about, and a person with lived experience, they're able to connect differently than anyone else. They're able to,
definitely. Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, you just said the some of the things you shared, and so, but we don't want to exploit ambassadors either. So they get a stipend. Like, we are asking for their supports, but people,
Yes.
you talked about, this is March, right? About pay gap.
Yeah,
We
right. Great camp, right?
we
That's why
need to
I
pay
love this video.
right. We need to pay people for their services. We need to let them know we support them and not just exploiting them for their expertise, for their services. So Southside Healthy Black Families Collaborative definitely is one of the pivotal changes that has helped us in our cultural responsiveness to the Black community, and it's helped us even replicate work in North Sacramento. So we realize, though, those partnerships, they've been true, they've been real, and and those partners were able to tell us some of the things that didn't serve them, some of the things that they will continue to speak up on if it doesn't support and serve them. And we're open, and we want to hear from the partners, we want to hear from the communities, and we want to continue to make change that's positive, that's reflective, and that's sustainable for our communities to live and to thrive.
Wow, Tamiza, I love the work you're doing with collaborations. I think that was so wise to collaborate instead of just going there and just doing your own thing, but to collaborate with the people who already have connections with people, right? And you named so many partners that you're collaborating with, and I think that's just a wise move. So kudos to you and Weave and Beth and Julie for all of the work they've done over the years in this space. And I pray that you continue to have impact, that you continue to be intentional. I know you're going to do amazing things in your new role there. They've got the right woman for the job when they hired Timiza Wash. So what a just a kind-hearted, just a gentle warrior. So I just appreciate that. And I appreciate that comment too. Glennis put up, let's put Glennis's chat in there. We need to pay people for their services and expertise. So many times we expect women to work for free. We don't expect men. We don't ask men to come in and work for free, but we expect women to work for free. So
And it's more than just hard work. It's hard work. And we need to pay people. We need to pay people for what we need to pay people for what they do, and I I truly want to just thank the staff, the leaders that have helped in this same mission. It's not a one lane thing. We all have different lanes to get to the destination.
Thank you for bringing that up. You couldn't do it without the people, right? The staff, right?
No.
The leaders can think of the ideas, but the staff implement ideas, and sometimes they bring their ideas to the fold. So thank you. I appreciate that. Absolutely.
And I know folks want to get to some winnings, some giveaways. So I hope
I just wanted to call out that quote. I just love that. It's not just hard work; it's hard work.
Exactly. And that's one of my that's my gift today too. So when we get to the gifting, I'll share that, because it's hard work, but it's hard work.
All right, come on now, say it. I know that to be true. All right, let's get to the winnings. We'll be back. Give us I swear it won't be about 30 seconds, but give us a few minutes to get to some winnings. We got let's tell them about the giveaways. I have that book to give away, Diversity Beyond Lip Service, a coaching guide.
I got this on my desk.
You got that? Oh my goodness. All right. I know this coach, Coach LaWanna Harris wrote this book. And she's just a wonderful warrior for people of color as well, but also a coach. And so, Timiza, tell them, this is one of the gifts. So, Timiza, tell them about your gift. That looks wonderful.
So, I'm always in our social justice spaces talking about the NAP ministry on Instagram.
NAP.
Yes, NAP.
Yeah.
Rest is social justice. Okay, I want folks to know that rest is social justice. And Trisha Hershey talks about rest as being restorative, and that we have to rest. And so when I talk about this work is hard work, but it's hard work, we also have to ensure that we're having rest practices to ensure that we can continue to do this hard work. And these cards are 50 practices to rest grind culture. And it really helps us to embrace the rest as a form of radical communal care and personal liberation.
Right. 50 practices to resist grind culture. And, I don't know how about many, but, that's our culture. My mother, you couldn't sit down in front of her. You could not sit down. You could not rest. There's always some work to do. Girl, you better get up and go do blah, 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 blah. But we know better now, right? So I love this stat. I'm gonna have to get I'm gonna have to get that for myself.
Right? And they're not out just yet. Her book is out, but I will be ordering this because they will come out in April. But I wanted to say this is my gift that I want to send to a winner, because and her book is already just came out in October of 2022. But look up our Instagram, the Nat Ministry.
I will. I will. Thank you. So give us a few minutes, 30 seconds. I promise we'll be right back to pull some names. Okay, names, please. Let's go around. Thank you. We are ready to come back. Thank you. All right. So we have a couple of winners today. This I know is going to do a lot of good. So for the rest book, we're sending this book. This is going to be a lot of good. Congratulations, Glennis Jensen. You get the rest book. I know what family she comes from, so I know she needs it. And then the next gift for DEI, Diversity Beyond Lip Gift Service, this is going to Francine Gregory. Congratulations, Francine. And we know you will enjoy learning a little bit more about how to make a real impact on diversity. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming, Timiza. I'm going to let you finish with one last word, and then I'm going to go on and talk about what's up next month with Impactful Conversations.
It is a pleasure to do this work. It is a pleasure to support the unseen, the and underserved communities and disenfranchised. I want to make an impact. I want to create change. I want to create support, and I want to create impact. And I ask of you, if you know someone or if you are someone who are experiencing domestic violence, sexual assault, feel comfortable in connecting with Weave through our support and information line that was in the chat, as well as our Weave website, www.weaveinc.org. And if we can put that in the chat, and I will.
Can we put that in the chat, please? Can we bring that up onto the screen? www.weaveinc.org.
www.weaveinc.org.
There you go.
And continuing loving and valuing yourselves because you matter. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you for just allowing me to be part of such a win in being on the Gayle Guest Brown Impact Show and Conversations. This was impactful, and it was just a blessing to be a part of the work you do, Gayle. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you, and I appreciate all that you are doing and will continue to do. And let me know if I can assist you in any way as you strive to have impact. Gayle Brown Impact is all about all things leadership and all things equity. So let me know if I can help you in any way as you strive to make an impact on your community. I'd love to partner with you. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for joining us. What's up next for Impactful Conversations? Our next Impactful Conversation is April 15th. We're going to be interviewing one of our own, but I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute. I want to first give kudos and thank you for all that joined us for Brand Your Brilliance and Negotiate the Virtual Experience 2023. Thank you for joining us. We had 77 signups. We had people with us all 7 days, and some people stayed with us for all 9 days. So we had a very impactful time, a time of connection, of sisterhood, of learning. We had many breakthroughs. It was such a cool event. I thank you for those of you who joined us. Now, that was a free event. I can only afford to do that once a year, but I'll be back next year. We'll have another offer of that kind. I will tell you what's next for us. Next slide, please. Yes, so the Command Your Worth Blueprint is what's next. We're coming up in April the 3rd. This is a special mentorship coaching cohort experience that I've created for women of color. And, I think we've heard a lot of statistics. We know that 60% of women have never negotiated in the workplace. We know that 72% of women would leave their work to find better jobs. We know that there's a lot of inequity, and negotiation is just one piece of it, right? There might be some things we need to unlearn about what we've learned about our value and our worth as women. And so I've created a 6-month experience. And you might wonder, why 6 months? Well, because it takes time to unlearn things. It takes time to habituate practices. It takes time to shift your mindset. And we'll be doing things like, really going deep to uncover our purpose for why we're on this earth, our why we're here, what we want to be about. We'll be taking time to understand what our motivation, what motivates us, how we're motivated. So we'll start internally, right? We'll talk about our mission statements, our personal purpose statements, and then we'll transition to external. How do we show up? How do we brand ourselves? How we'll do a social media audit? How do we primp our profiles? So all of the things, the influence playbook is in there. And then finally, we'll transition to, what is the negotiation pregame strategy? What's the tactics? What are the words I use? How do I ask for this? But it all is tied to, how do I convey my value to this workplace, right? By the time you finish here, you'll be strong. You'll know your purpose. You'll know how to convey your value. You'll have done the research to know what you are, what the fair market value for your job is going for. You'll be ready to go into that negotiation with conviction. And so all of this is important because confidence is a big part of negotiation. So I hope you will join me. A lot of people want to be, something that's going to happen overnight or why not do 2 days? Well, some things you can't do in 2 days. So if you really want to make a difference in your life and really want to change how you show up in the workplace, this is the blueprint for you. You can go and get more information and save your seat by going to commandyourworth.info. So it's in the link there. Oh, it's in the chat. Thank you, folks. I hope that you will join me, and don't wait. It's just 2 weeks away, right? How many of you know that you can't do new things with old ways, right? We have to sometimes reinvent. We have to sometimes re-examine and form new ways of being. But I'm here for that. I'm here for you. Guest Brown Impact is about all things equity and all things leadership. And let's go get what God has for us in 2023. You can be what you need to be in 2023. You're with me. Let's go get it. All right. So I hope you guys will join us on April the 15th when we get back to and we interview our sister, the fabulous Francine Gregory from Biz Chicks. She'll be introducing her new book that just dropped. So come back and find out all about that and meet the lady behind the scenes, Francine Gregory from Biz Chicks. I look forward to seeing you guys then. Have a good day. Ciao for now.
and I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again.